All right, guys. Today we are going to be reacting to the most innovative 3D printed house in the world. This is more about that new age or printing, right? With the 3D printers. Let's jump in.
At a two-story 3D printed house designed by Mense Korte, an architecture firm in Germany. Built with an autonomous printing machine capable of working day and night. This model is the most innovative and intricate 3D printed house to date. Mense Korte has deeply considered all of the possibilities this printer has to offer and implemented many of them in the design of this building, largely on-site, implementing a few parts printed off-site for overhangs that couldn't be printed in sequence with the rest of the
So it's
building.
a mix of
This
both.
project uses a Cobod 3D printer, which is assembled, as you can see, with a crane and manual labor to attach some of the screws and rivets. The 6 vertical pillars, which enable the Z-axis, are attached to half-ton concrete blocks in order to make sure they stay exactly where they're put. The stability of these pillars is crucial to the consistency of your print. If they move during the print, then the printer's alignment will be off. That will result in a failed print, or at the very least, something very unattractive. 3 of the vertical pillars in parallel are joined with a horizontal bar that will enable the Y-axis for the printer. The other 3 on the opposite side will have a similar setup. One more horizontal beam will run on a track between the 2 other horizontal beams in order to operate the X-axis for the printer. Once it's fully assembled, they can get to printing. Now, looking at their printer, it looks quite different from some of the other prints that we've seen in the past on this channel. You may notice the horizontal metal reinforcement in between the walls, along with the black 2 or 3 inch diameter tube. They have taken considerations for HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, all within the 3D model to be printed. This means that during the print process, there are various intervenous steps taken by humans to place things where they belong, avoiding the need to make cuts into the concrete to do modifications after the print. The moldability of this material before it cures can be seen as a challenge, but it's also an advantage in many ways. It makes it simple to put oddly shaped parts in the wall and have a perfect seal around them. Some of these walls are spaced apart significantly because they're exterior walls that will need to be filled with insulation to achieve the R value required for this building in Germany. I often talk about how companies will begin rethinking the construction process from the old ways of thinking about it to ways that will accommodate these new technologies which automate large portions of the processes.
Not only that, it's the only way you can, at this point, make sure that some of the prices of the houses are low, man. Because it is, guys, it is high. Some of these prices for these houses are high.
It's clear to me
So
on this project that the architects had a very deep and thorough understanding of the capabilities this technology had before they implemented many of these designs. The level of detail and consideration in an attempt to maximize the use of 3D printed technology is completely unprecedented in this project, and it's the only one like it so far in the world. They test many design elements from patterns, overhang strategies, and even printed furniture within the building, functional
wow,
things like a shower and a fireplace. This
printed.
house turned experimentation up to the max and reconsidered every design element. Even a portion of the window frame is printed, as opposed to many projects which have just framed out their windows. This printer requires about 3 people to operate on site, give or take 1 depending on experience and size of the print. They may have had more people on site for this project because they're doing more than just operation of the printer. They may have a designated person for electrical and plumbing fixtures.
Wow,
Another person must control the
incredible.
heavy concrete hose pumping into the extruder head, and one more person standing by for safety's sake, who can
Yeah.
adjust, pause, or stop things if necessary from the computer. The material they're using is called iTech 3D. It was developed by Heidelberg Cement AG and was specifically developed for 3D printing. The construction technology, which was carried out for the first time in Germany, passed all official approval processes without any problems. Many people think 3D printing is a way to make a house without any effort, but it certainly requires some oversight if you
Mm-hmm.
want things to go smoothly.
I think there
This
was a story about a guy that he just rented one of these machines and he just built the house by himself. He did the design and everything and just built it by himself. It's crazy.
guy is measuring the temperature of the concrete to know how quickly it will cure. Gaps can be made in the wall for M&E equipment by inserting a metal surface above a gap between two printed walls. From there, the printer is able to print right over that surface and have a smooth layer that looks right in line with the last.
Hmm.
This horizontal reinforcement that almost resembles a staple is inserted manually. A task like this could be automated in the future. I'm sure, as great as this project is, they learned many lessons while building it, so the next one may even be better. It seems the first foot or so has gravel fill with insulation on top. This is most likely because maintaining a low center of gravity improves the structural stability of the home. From this bird's eye view, you're able to see the white insulation in the
Yep.
exterior of the walls. This is probably a foam insert insulation, which is either pre-cut to size or sprayed in between the gaps of the wall. You may have noticed the makeshift tent that they're printing in. This tent prevents the outside elements from influencing the quality of their layer lines. That's why they look so good. Now we'll take a look inside. There's the fireplace I was talking about. It
Wow.
looks like it might make for a great pizza oven. They truly printed almost everything. Many of the projects we see are just a printed shell of a building that needs to be completely constructed from the inside. But this one,
Yo,
after the
knowing that that takes so many years, man, or even months, right, to make. These people just make it like this. This is crazy, man. It's crazy.
3D printer is done, looks almost complete. There's nothing boring or basic about this building. Every single aspect is strange curvature, unique angles, and something completely different from anything we've seen before. Let's check out a rendering of what it may look like when it's complete. I have to say, Mense
Wow.
Korte did a terrific job. Architecture has a reputation for being stuck in its ways, but they've gone completely out of the box to discover something completely new. The design elements of this building are incredibly unique because they're
It's
tailored to the capabilities of the concrete 3D printer that created it, and
wow.
not just the aesthetic things visible to the naked eye. The guts of this building are just as impressive as the design.
Wow.
It seems they've taken advantage of the freeform style of the printed
But
concrete
but that means that there's no basement. See what I'm saying? There's no basement.
to minimize the total distance of wire and piping necessary for the building. The floor plan is quite open and modern. I believe the home was sold to a private buyer, so it's unclear whether or not an interior tour will ever be publicly available. While we're talking about some of the mechanical equipment, it's an appropriate time to mention that once again we see an MTech machine featured on the build site. If anyone from MTech is watching this, you guys should sponsor my channel. On the right of this picture, you can see some gray printed concrete currently supported by some lumber below. Any idea how that was put there? More on that later. At this point, the protective tent around the printer is removed because all of the printing is done. With the tent gone, the printer is then disassembled and potentially brought to its next printing location. Here's a
Wow.
close-up of the interior wall. I believe that's for plumbing. However, it very well may serve as a simple path to run conduit through in the future. There's a simple beauty to the organization of all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing equipment for this building. It all looks so efficient, coming from one place and running nearly directly to where it must go. With print lines this smooth, I think it's best to just leave the concrete exposed or implement a simple design like the one here. This feature seems to be a 3D printed bathtub, although I would be quite surprised if that concrete was capable of holding any water on its own. To assemble the roof, they used precast concrete forms that were craned in and dropped into place. The pre-assembled rebar cages on their top side mean there's less work to do on site after the equipment is inserted and the floor is poured in. With Perry's comprehensive construction experience in Germany, I'm sure they chose one of the most efficient options for their use case. Until we find an affordable material that's printable horizontally, I don't see any automation happening on site for roofing solutions in the near future.
So the
Now,
roofing, you had to make it like traditionally you would make a roofing, you just put it back, right?
let's hear from an architect from Mense Korte directly about this project.
Hi, I'm Mense Korte from the engineering company Mense Korte in Beckum. Our company developed and designed the first printed residential home in Germany and did the whole structural engineering for that project. According to the project in Beckum,
Wow.
we established the company
Gorgeous.
Hausdruck, which is one of the first of its kind in Germany. To me, as one of the owners of Hausdruck, concrete 3D printing means a new freedom in designing buildings.
Wow.
Building homes with printing machines helps us to solve the huge problem of skilled workers shortage and allows us to build homes in half of the time compared to usual construction types. And last but not least, we will soon be able to build more cost efficient than others do. We believe in the enormous potential of 3D concrete printing and are already into planning for further projects in Germany.
Many people
With that, you can't even, bro, you can't even build commercial buildings. You can, oh my God. You have,
in this industry debate the merits of on-site versus off-site construction, but Mense Korte had other plans in mind. They had design dreams that weren't possible with the on-site printer. In order to achieve their vision, they used an off-site printer to print some of the parts that would need to be installed later on. These parts that had to be printed off-site were then organized nicely and sent over to the building. I'm sure if they wanted to, these parts could have been printed in advance on the site of the building. However, it's really cool that they managed to implement both off-site and on-site
Yep.
3D printing for this project, because that had never really occurred to me before. I've only ever really seen one or the other in the past. Once on-site, the pre-printed units are assembled to the building manually. I hope this gives some comfort to the few people who have commented concerns about automation and jobs. There are many phenomenal engineers working on this technology, but not everybody working with this technology needs to be an engineer. It will require many contractors and, for the time being, often students who are assisting with projects
Yeah.
in experimental settings.
yeah.
The pieces contain vertical steel, which can be used as a connection point for the hoist. The same vertical pieces protrude from the bottom, which can attach to the printed component below in order to ensure a snug fit. There are many of these prefabricated concrete units. Each has to be not too large that it's unmanageable. Transporting them is quite a hassle. During the transport, they can sometimes chip or even crack. They exist purely for aesthetic purposes, so it may be cheaper to opt out of this kind of design. As mentioned earlier, these pieces are reinforced with vertical rebar. These off-site made forms offer a bunch of new design options that were previously inaccessible just because they can't be printed in sequence with the rest of the layers. If you've enjoyed this video or
Wow,
learned something
that's-
new,
That I think that's the solution for the. So you had the mini houses, but now the mini houses, the tiny houses, are becoming almost $100,000 for only like what 400 square feet. So this is the future, guys. AI is here to just take over. So here, and design is beautiful too, man. If you have the money to just press the button and all of a sudden you build a house, so be it, man. So be it. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you next one.